day, everybody. Admiral James Stavridis, Dean at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, and I'm here with one of my absolute favorite American iconic diplomats, Madam Ambassador to Mexico, Roberta Jacobson. Welcome to the Fletcher School.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean.
Well, it's great to have you here, and I wanted to start by asking kind of the classic question when we get an alumna back. You're a graduate of the Fletcher School. Your undergrad was Brown, but how did you find your way to Fletcher, and what was your experience like here?
There were some particular attributes that I loved about Fletcher, the Security Studies program. And at that point, we had Houston Ryan, who was doing public diplomacy at the Murrow Center. So it had a lot of things going for it that really made it appeal to me.
We've had an unbelievable run at State Department as a civil servant. Although you served as a DCM in Peru, now you're the ambassador to Mexico. In the middle, you did two extraordinary things. You were the Assistant Secretary of State for Latin America. And then, of course, you were famous for being the diplomat who really opened Cuba. So it's an amazing run. Now, as ambassador to Mexico, kind of how do you bring that together? Yeah. And what are kind of the key issues you're facing, Madam Ambassador?
I think one of the things that I've been very lucky about is I had great women mentors at the State Department. I had great men who were mentors too. But especially the example of very strong women mentors. And so as the first Assistant Secretary for Western Hemisphere, who was a woman, and the first woman ambassador to Mexico, I try and mentor as many young women as I can, encourage them to stay in. I think it's a great time to be ambassador in Mexico because you get a lot of opportunity to defend, advance the relationship. I think the biggest challenges are rule of law, and making sure we continue to work together on the advancement of the judicial reform that will put the oral adversarial system in practice. But rule of law more broadly, I think that we have got to do more, and we're focused very much on the heroin and fentanyl epidemic because it is doing huge damage to both sides, and there's a real will to cooperate.
It's a political season in the United States. One of the political candidates has spoken loudly and frequently about his desire to build, as he calls it, a wonderful, enormous wall between the United States and Mexico. What do you think of that? And more importantly, I suppose, what do our friends in Mexico think of that?
I think one of the things you just cannot overstate is the concern in Mexico about proposals like that. And the concern, regardless of who may be saying it, that post-election, there will still be a lot of people who voted for those kinds of proposals that seem to believe that either they can be implemented or that they would be productive for either country. I think it's pretty clear that we both get an enormous amount out of this relationship. $1.6 billion a day trades across that border, and we know that, for example, of the Mexican imports we bring into the United States, 40% is made up of U.S. content, as compared to 4% of those coming in from China. Ultimately, what we're doing is making things together. What we have on the border that we must address is a really serious infrastructure deficit to make that border more efficient, more secure, and more productive.
Well, I want to close by just saying thank you for coming, for your presence here. We're so honored to make you our distinguished alumni for this year at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy.
Muchísimas gracias, Dean Stavridis. Thank you so much. I'm very pleased.